So today in MG's Workplace series, we're talking about fairness. Now, at some stage in your life, you will have heard someone put out the statement, life's not fair. And when they say that, there's this sense that they're kind of expecting you to just suck it up and move on. There's a sense that, life's not fair, it's just based on chance, based on luck. However, the line troubles me because it suggests that we shouldn't strive for fairness. Yet when you think about it, fairness is such an innate trait that sits within all of us. We're so acutely attuned to situations that we see as unfair. Just look at children and you'll notice that from a very early age, they'll say, often with a wail attached to it, "That's not fair." So fairness is instinctual. We have 5 domains of primary social experience, and these are elements that can draw us towards something because we see it as rewarding and good for us, or push us away because we see it as not good for us. And fairness is one of those domains. Dr. Sarah Brosnan from Georgia State's Department of Psychology and Philosophy, and also Dr. Franz de Waal, who is from the Psychology Department at Emory University, they've examined this type of trait, and they've examined it in the context of primates, one of our closest related species. And what they found is that when a primate sees someone getting more of a reward than they're getting, they are going to react in a certain way. And their paper, which was titled "Monkeys Reject Unequal Pay," great title, published in Nature magazine back in 2003. And in that study, they were looking at the brown capuchin monkey. And what their research found is that the monkeys became agitated and refused to perform a task when they saw another monkey doing exactly the same task, but receiving a better reward. It's the same for us. We notice what's fair, what's unfair. When it's fair, it motivates us, can keep us going. When it's unfair, it demotivates us and it can lead us toward unhelpful behavior. So this desire for fairness, it's in our personal life and it's in our professional life. So it absolutely matters at work. And if you're a leader, you want to pay attention to, are you being a fair leader? And what's interesting is when we think about the characteristics of good leaders, fairness is a trait that usually doesn't rate a mention. Yet when you go beyond its ethical underpinnings, fairness is a powerful leadership quality because it filters into so many aspects of what leaders do. Reward and recognition, promotion, decision-making, how you allocate your time. I could go on. And it's a psychological contract that you've got between each of your team members. And that psychological contract, it relies on fairness. Research shows that focusing on fairness and equity helps us create the space that we need for equal opportunity and for a more positive, trust-based, and engaged work environment. When the people around you that work with you perceive that they're treated fairly, they experience greater job satisfaction, higher levels of motivation, and increased organizational commitment. But on the flip side, it's also a demotivator when you're unfair. So, pay and rewards are not the ultimate motivator, and we know that. But they absolutely demotivate when it's seen as unfair because people compare themselves all the time around outcomes, benefits, rewards versus the amount of input that they've actually put into it. Now, a person who works with you can be really happy about what they're getting paid until they discover that a colleague who perhaps they think is working less than them or just actually not contributing in the same way is getting paid more than they do. And if a person believes that they work harder and contributes more and are paid less, this not only causes discontentment, but it can drive far more negative behavior. Psychologists Andrew Farnham and John Taylor, in their book Bad Apples, Identify, Prevent and Manage Negative Behaviors at Work, talks about equity theory. So equity theory is concerned with outcomes and inputs as they're perceived by the people involved, not how they actually are. And so what happens in practice is the greater the perceived inequity, the greater the motivation for the person to try and find a way to restore that balance. Now, how someone's going to do that will vary. It can be things like an employee being less productive, taking more sick leave, or committing fraud as they try to find a way to fix that inequity. The challenge, of course, with all of this is what's fair, what's unfair. It is also based on perception, the perception of what that person sees is happening around them. So regardless of the merit or otherwise of that perception, the outcome is a sustained impact on their motivation and also on the team's morale. So as a leader, you play a really crucial role in ensuring that your team members are not only treated fairly, but they're perceived as being treated fairly. You need to balance that focus on the individual and the collective reward so that people can feel that they're being treated fairly. The challenge, of course, is, we know that when teams come together, we can achieve amazing things. And I've frequently seen how ideas by one person are improved by another person. We often get our best ideas when we're together, collective, challenging each other, inspiring each other. Yet curiously, often organizations reward just as individuals. Their reward and recognition schemes don't focus on collective effort. Now, on one side of the argument is that sense, people say, well, not everyone contributes the same, and so we do need to reward for individual difference. But the challenge is, if you're trying to promote collegiality, if you're promoting a team environment and you're not rewarding team effort, you're potentially saying one thing and doing something else. So you really want to challenge yourself and consider the level of objectivity that's being applied to how reward and recognition is being determined. Are you being fair? Are you playing favourites? Are you backing your team or backing an individual? And do you really know what matters to your team when it comes to reward and recognition? And look, sure, different people want to be recognised in different ways. But what's common across the board is that people want to be genuinely recognised, valued, appreciated for what it is that they do. And they want that recognition and appreciation to be fair. Great leaders see the value and the difference that each team member brings to the table. They can recognise that each person is unique and therefore has different needs. And therefore they're going to work to bring out the best in the people that they're working with. And they do this in a way that people feel valued, respected, well treated. So as a leader, take the time to understand how your team wants to celebrate and recognise success. Focus on efforts that bond the team rather than divide the team. Because what your team can achieve together is far more than what they're going to achieve alone. And part of this is recognising that fairness as a character trait, as a leadership trait, it's a cornerstone of you being an effective leader. It's really hard to build trust, loyalty, credibility without it. And remember, leaders who consistently exhibit fairness in their interactions, in their decision making, they're perceived as more trustworthy, more authentic by their team. Fair leaders empower their team, and they do that by providing equal opportunities, recognising the individual contribution, but balancing that out with the collective. They encourage open dialogue, diverse perspectives. They strive to handle conflicts and make decisions by applying principles of fairness. So as you start to think about what does fairness look like for you? And are you a fair leader? I've got 3 questions for you to consider. Firstly, how much effort are you putting into being a fair leader? Question 2, what role is fairness playing currently for you as a leader? And what do you therefore need to do differently? And that leads to question 3. What are your opportunities to improve? What can you do better? I'm going to leave you with a quote by the journalist Brit Hume, who said, fairness, it's not an attitude, it's a professional skill that must be developed and exercised. Take care. I'll see you next week.